Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted, the go-to podcast for those flipping the script and taking the unexpected path. I'm your host, Jessica Bergio, holistic life and business coach, author, speaker, and self-proclaimed high-energy hype girl. Each week, I'm bringing you inside. No gatekeeping here. I'll touch on proven holistic business strategies, powerful mindset shifts that have led my clients through massive transformations, and no BS conversation with industry leaders designed to help you get out of your own way to actively pursue a life of purpose. If you're ready to ditch the limitations at the door, hit follow and get ready to be activated to step boldly towards your big goals. Now let's dive in. I'm excited for today's guest. She's someone I've been actually a fangirl of for quite a long time because this girl shows up on social media like nobody's business. She is unapologetic about how she is here to serve other people. And she does that by doing it herself. Don't we love people who walk the walk and don't just talk the talk? I'm a little overwhelmed with social media and all the ways that you can make seven figures yesterday, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk about ways you can show up on social media authentically and in your secret sauce superpower, as she says. So, Jera, girl, welcome to the show.
What's up? I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the lovely introduction. That was so nice.
You literally omit that. Oh God, it would be so easy if I could just show up like her energy. First question, I'm curious, is this just a natural thing that you have, or is this something that you can help people who didn't build a business or grow up on social media learn how to do with ease like you do?
It's not necessarily natural, as in these things take time and energy and practice. I actually just hit my 9-year freaking anniversary on social media. Funny enough, I remember my very first post ever. It was April 4th, 2015. I signed up for Kayla Itzinas's BBG workout program, and that was my first post and really the first day of the rest of my life as I know it, which is crazy to pinpoint it in such a way. But it has been 9 years. So it's been a lot of showing up consistently and showing up through different pivots and changes and life evolutions and challenges and achievements. So I would say for me over the years, it has been a gradual learning. It's taken different moments of experimentation and fumbling through it, I would say, to figure it out for myself. Now, that being said, I help other people figure out how to do that for themselves a little bit faster than 9 years, because the beauty of having done this for almost a decade now and fumbling through it is that I have figured out different frameworks and methods and ways to guide people along in the process. And because I was originally an influencer and a content creator from 2015 to 2019, and then it was in 2019 that I originally developed my social media coaching and education business, it's now been, 4 or 5 years of actually working with people. So I have not only the experience of doing it myself, but I have several years under my belt of really coaching and teaching other people how to use social media as a tool to support your business, but authenticity and showing up in your secret sauce is a major part of that.
Good to know that some of us, it's taken a little longer. That's normal. It sounds like 9 years. Literally, I just had this conversation with Lori Harder the other day when she was on the podcast, and she talked about how long things take. She's given upwards of 5, 6, 7 years. She's had her podcast, I think, for 7 or 8 years, which is why she has had the growth she's had. And it's the same for so many other creators. We just want to put people on these pedestals of having fast tracked it and quote unquote figured it out sooner than everybody else. But really, the common theme between everyone that's had the level of success even that you have had is the consistency and the fact that they're not afraid to try things on, check the data, see what's working, tweak it, and keep going. And it's evolved because, where you started isn't where you're at now. And I love that. I love the pivot. I'm a huge fan of people who are able to see value in something and then take their skill set and then move it in a different direction to whatever the market is wanting and wanting to learn. So give us a little bit of backstory, because what was Jera doing before she decided to become an influencer? What was the journey like?
So if we rewind back to college days, I was a fine art major, which, by the way, I chose that on a total whim. I was undeclared freshman year, and I met a bunch of people who became my friends, and a lot of them were fine art majors. And I was like, cool, guess I'll do that too. I will say I've always been a very creative person. So it's not like I went from math and statistics to all of a sudden being interested in art, but I don't think I ever would have predicted. I was thinking maybe French or creative writing or film or something of that nature. So I went with fine art and I had an emphasis in graphic design. So after college, I was a graphic designer and I was working at startups. I did some freelance work. And then I had this pretty challenging time, let's say around like the 2012 to 2015 era, where I was at a job that just so manipulated me. I was in my early-ish 20s at the time. I didn't know any better. And I allowed this small startup to just take advantage of me in so many ways, to the point where I parted my hair one day in the bathroom, just doing my hair, and I saw like a little bald spot on my head. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Guess I'm stressed. But I didn't even really think anything of it at the time, which is nuts. But that was the same time I was realizing I had some issues to deal with. I was diagnosed with social anxiety. So there was just a lot going on in that phase. But I bring this up because it was this sort of storm of not so great things happening that really led me to the next step, which was doing that popular BBG program at the time by Kayla Itsinas as a tool to bring something positive into my life. I followed people for about a year before starting the program, and everyone else had created an Instagram account. And that was the reason why I created an Instagram account, to hold myself accountable. So that's sort of a lead up into that big day, April 4th, 2015, that really was that first day of the rest of my life, at least up until the present moment.
I think that part of the story is going to resonate with so many people that listen to this particular podcast, because majority of people follow me for the pivot from being a beauty entrepreneur for 22 years into the online coaching space. So the question I get asked the most is like, how did you go from brick and mortar to online? And what was the catalyst to that change? And sometimes we want to overlook the symptoms our bodies are sharing with us as to what the actual root problem is. We want to be like, oh, I'm just someone who has anxiety. I'm just someone who has depression. Now, I speak a lot about like our environments being the make or break piece of what we are actually able to do or not do. And I think you being able to take yourself out of that situation had to be the biggest game changer. I'm sure your hair grew back. And as a hairdresser, I can't tell you, like, side note, how many times I've seen people have particular issues that they don't understand are related to stress, because our bodies don't know the difference between good stress or bad stress, let alone people just chalk it up to this is just how it has to be. But with the online space now, it isn't. And you're someone who can help somebody that has maybe just an idea, who maybe doesn't even have a social media account, but hopefully listens to podcasts. That's why they're here listening right now. And is thinking, holy shit, okay, she's normal. She had a quote unquote regular job and she pivoted. And I think that piece and that gift of permission of anything is possible if you're willing to put yourself out there. But we're going to share some cool ways that you guys can actually start showing up on social media. I know you have a couple of frameworks that we can talk about as far as like creating short form videos, which so many people are afraid to do. They think they have to dance around like TikTok. And I don't know about you. I'm in my 40s. I'm like, my TJ dancing days, those days are over, and I'm so glad nobody recorded them. With that being said, we know short form video and we know clips like even from the podcast are great, but people have a hard time connecting the idea of creating content that's actually driving traffic to whatever it is they're selling or trying to create versus just creating content for the likes and downloads. Now, I know they both add up, but majority of people that I speak to or coach, they're like, I want to create good value-driven content. How do I start to do that?
Great question. And such a big question. And there's so many ways to answer that. So where I usually like to begin is really understanding what you need to be posting and why you need to be posting it. What I find is that people tend to get really caught up in the things that do not matter. Now, that's a really strong statement. So I will have a little bit of grain of salt there, that sometimes some of these things maybe do matter, but they're just a really low hanging fruit, or they actually don't matter until you have the strategy in place. I see this all the time as I'm scrolling through reels. I'll come across a reel that's like how to grow on Instagram. And it's like, post 5 reels a week, ask a question in your story, batch your content, use a trending sound. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to freaking punch a wall right now, because that is not how you grow on Instagram. Sure, reels have a place. Yes, trending sounds, we can use those. Of course, yeah, if you want to batch your content and that works for you, awesome. But a lot of these things are either low-hanging fruit or you need something else in place in order for it to work. And I also find that so often we focus on the how. Like, for example, batching your reels, that's part of the how, but that isn't actually what you should be posting and why you should be posting it. So I say all of this to then get to my next point of really crafting a strategy that works for you. And for me, and when I work with my clients and students, it all starts with what I call the Content Pillar Trifecta. Now, I'm sure we've all heard of content pillars, content buckets, so that's not necessarily a new concept. But what I find is that content pillars are not always taught in the most effective way. For example, educate, inspire, and entertain. Those are not content pillars. Those are byproducts of content that you post. So with my structure, I have 3 types of content pillars, and these are simply just inward facing tools to make sure that you are sharing content that makes sense for your business, sharing content that is valuable, and sharing a range of content that makes sense for your business. So to explain that further, we have your expertise pillars, and your expertise pillars are all about providing value, solidifying your authority, your credibility, etc. Then we have your secret sauce pillars, and this is all about connection and building relationships and nurturing your community. And then we have your business pillars, which, as it sounds obvious, this is all about promoting your business, but there's nuance there where we generate awareness, but then we also want to convert. So a little bit more detail into what each of those are. With your expertise pillars, for the most part, you are going to define 3 specific pillars within that. Now, that can be so different for everyone. A yoga instructor might have mindset, movement, and nutrition, for example, if that's part of what they do. A social media manager might have community building, personal branding, messaging, and converting followers to clients. It's essentially like, what are the different parts of your expertise? And if you were to put those into slightly more specific categories, what would those be? Now, one side note to that is if you want to approach it from a different lens, you could potentially consider what I call the expertise pillar, which is different formats of education and value. So at the very bottom of the pillar, we have how-tos and tips. That's the most obvious and easiest form of providing value. In the middle, this is where it starts to get a little bit more challenging, is what I call commentary and insight. This is where you take something happening in your industry, something in pop culture, something in the news, and you tell us about it, but you also relate it to what you do, as well as provide your perspective. At the very top, which is one of the most important, but it is the most challenging as it's the most intangible, is thought leadership. And this is where you're not doing step by step. You're not giving a tutorial. You're not relying on an outside source. This is coming from you. This is your unique perspective. This is how you see things differently in your industry. This is your unique ways of processing what it is that you do. So you can have 3 pillars, as I described, dividing up your expertise. You can have the expertise pillar, how to use commentary and thought leadership, or you could also play around with both. So that's the expertise. I know that was a lot. So I still want to talk about secret sauce and business, but I just want to pause for a moment.
It was so helpful and so strategic. And if you're listening, feel free to rewind this or listen to it at a much slower speed so you can work through this. I love that you're just giving away a lot of your secret sauce also, because honestly, at the end of the day, what people tend to do is keep things close to the vest, that little bit of gatekeeping. And I'll tell you right now, if you're listening to this episode, do this homework first and then take things up a notch by getting into the program. If there's something in this that you're loving, and dive deeper into it with real-time coaching with someone like Jera, who that takes you to the next level and helps you refine things a little bit more. Because I'll tell you that messaging and marketing and showing up on social is one of the biggest things that holds people back from actually getting where I know that they can be. And as much as I love to speak holistically about certain things, the exact messaging and where you're able to pull your expertise from in order to drive traffic to what you want to be selling, it's like a make or break if you're going to have actual clients knocking on your door saying, oh, you're so inspiring and I love all of your content, versus how do I work with you? How do I buy what you have? It's the game changer between people just looking and people actually DMing you asking, how do they work with you? So side note in there, I know this is what you do. So I'm just so grateful you're sharing all of this. So yeah, let's get to the secret sauce.
Yeah, let's talk about secret sauce. This is an important one. And it goes back to one of your first questions that you asked just a few moments ago when we started the podcast. This word authenticity is used very much so in relation to social media. And what I find is that people say when giving advice is to show up authentically. And I used to say this as well a couple of years ago, like when my first cohort ever in my group coaching program, I'm like, yeah, guys, okay, show up authentically. And the advice is well-intentioned. There's nothing wrong with that advice. The issue is that the advice is incomplete. To me, it's the same thing of running up to someone who does not have their driver's license and has never learned how to drive and saying, here, see this car here? You got to drive it. And then you're also running away with the keys. This person doesn't have the skills, the experience, or the tools, and you're expecting them to drive this car. And to me, it's the same thing as saying, show up authentically. It's like, okay, perhaps we are our real authentic selves in real life, but we actually don't have experience showing up in the digital form of you in an authentic way. That's a new thing. And then we're not giving the tools or guidance for how to do so. I realized there was a huge gap in knowledge, and it took me a couple years to develop this, but I have what I call this secret sauce framework. And I don't see anyone else teaching authenticity at all, especially in a specific way like this. I'm very proud of it because it makes it very tangible. And therefore, once something becomes tangible, it becomes much more actionable. So the 4 quadrants are as follows. We have foundational secret sauce, professional, present, and lighthearted. And each of these represent a different part of you. Foundational is focusing more so on the past. These are the experiences, the moments, the pivots, the challenges, the achievements that have really brought you where you are today and make up the fabric of your story. On the flip side, we have present. So that's you in the present. It's your energy, your values, your personality, your quirks. It is what you like to do on the weekends. It's who you are as a human, really outside of your work and business. And it's also life in the present moment. So it could be stuff that's really great in the moment, but it could also be stuff that's really hard and not great in the moment as well. So there's a range. Then we have professional secret sauce, which, as it sounds, focuses on the business side of you, the entrepreneur, the business owner. I will say there definitely is going to be a little bit of an overlap between professional secret sauce and thought leadership, which is at the very top of the expertise pyramid. And to me, it's great because nothing's black and white. Different categories and pillars of you can potentially overlap. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. So professional secret sauce is really what makes you different as the professional that you are. What are your frameworks, processes, methods? Why does someone come to you over someone else who does the same thing as you? How do you see things in your industry and so on? So it's not how-tos and tips, but it's really something I think that is developed with years of experience. It does take time to develop your professional secret sauce. And then lastly, my personal favorite is lighthearted secret sauce, which is the fun, the goofy, the casual. It can even be the random and the routine and the mundane. It doesn't necessarily have to be the funny stuff. I often find that it's the mundane things that we share that sometimes create the most connection. So an example of my own is cheese and crackers. I'll never forget. It was the very end of 2021, like maybe New Year's Eve. For a while, I've been the person who never does the vision boards, never sets a word for the year. I'm starting to change on that, by the way. But I was just being silly and I created a reel where I'm like, my phrase for 2022 is cheese and crackers. And it was like me eating cheese and crackers. People lost it. They're like, this is the funniest thing. I love cheese and crackers. So it's developed into this inside joke where I've now had a partnership with a cracker brand and I created an entire song about cheese and crackers. People send me cheese and crackers memes. I get tagged in cheese posts. And so I made cheese and crackers club sweatshirts. So this is like a big example of how one mundane thing can really turn into something big. It's not always like that, but sometimes we think, oh, who's going to care about this? This is such a small thing. Or, oh, I have this thought. Nah, better not share it. And it's usually those things that actually create a lot of conversation. The things that we think are boring are sometimes the things that are the most relatable. So lighthearted can be anything from the mundane to I love armpit farting. I'm really good at it. Don't ask me how this came about. That's obviously a very silly, wacky thing within lighthearted secret sauce. But those are the 4 quadrants: foundational, professional, present, and lighthearted. And the last thing that I'll say about this, besides it making authenticity more tangible and actionable, is that it also gives you choice. A big misconception around authenticity is that you have to bear it all. You have to share everything. You have to share the darkest secrets of your life in order to be authentic. And that just couldn't be further from the truth. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to create privacy in your life. And you can also select which quadrant you are wanting to show up in. For instance, a lawyer might decide it really makes the most sense and it's the most appropriate for my profession to focus on professional and foundational, but present and lighthearted. That doesn't make sense and it's not appropriate for what I do. So you could show up in foundational and professional, or even just one of the quadrants and still be showing up authentically. So that's really important to me too, is that not all 4 quadrants are required in order to show up in a way that's authentic.
Yeah, thank you for saying that and also giving that bit of permission, because I think some people do feel like they have to check all of those boxes. If that's the framework she's giving me, I have to follow it to a T. And I'll tell you what you said about the cheese and crackers. That's key. And you'd get along well with my son. He loves armpit farting. But honestly, people want to do business with people who are human. And so when you bring the humanized aspects of your life into your business, it really helps people relate to who you are and connect with you. It's either a yes or a no for them. And that's generally what you want to create. You don't want to be for everybody, because then no one really knows if you're for them. But you'll be surprised at what simple things people do like to connect on, right? I do think those are the coolest things. And that's such a great story, the cheese and crackers, around how one thing can lead down a path of so many other things. And it's so great because it takes the pressure off of having to have things all figured out. And what you gave us there was like a mad lib of content choices. And we do that inside when we help people start their podcasts, is kind of figure out who their personas and lenses are, who they're speaking to. If you want to talk about specific things on your podcast, you can do it in a variety of different ways, which are similar to your framework. So I love this. I'm going to see if we can add some of this into the way we help people put content out for podcasting, because it's super similar. And also the piece you touched on of having some boundaries with social media. I do love that. You either like gravitate towards someone or you feel repelled by some things that they share if they tend to go places you don't maybe want to go. And I definitely have some boundaries around like what I'm willing to bond with people on in regards to like the content I put out. So yeah, I think we all can find ourselves in the story of all of that. But thank you for those frameworks. I think anyone can easily do some solid homework with all of this. And I know you've got some cool shit that people can connect with and get into your world. Anytime I see you pop up when you're either podcasting with the other girls or you're on social, you just exude so much joy and happiness. What are some things that motivate you and get you like in the juices of content creation? Or do you just wake up and you're like ready to go?
Oh man, absolutely not. I like to be very transparent. That's not how it is all the time. In full transparency, I'm in like a bit of a lull at the moment. I think there's a lot of contributing factors to that. This year, I'm in a remixing of my business. I am changing different products and offerings. And I'm also working with someone right now to do a really big soul searching deep dive into who I want to be as a human, but also as a business as well, as a leader, and really honing in on what's the impact I want to have? What is the effect I want to have on people? Who exactly is it that I want to work with? And how do I really hone in on my zone of genius? And it's a really exciting time to be in because this is very necessary for me. And I think it's like the next evolution of where I'm going to go and who I'm going to be. I think at the same time, it's giving me a little bit of pause with my content, because I think if you are remixing and evolving your business and yourself, it's like, what is it that I really want to put out? And I don't have that completely defined yet. So I just want to be very honest with everyone that sometimes you are going to feel stuck. Sometimes you're going to be in a rut, and it could be for a wide range of reasons. Maybe you're just really busy, or maybe you're like me where you're redefining yourself and your business. So there's quite a range there. But I think you really want to have a core soup of evergreen content ideas. And this is all developed from your pillars, from your expertise, from your business, from your secret sauce. At the end of the day, there is pretty much a finite amount of stuff that you should be talking about. But the beauty is, how do you take those different subjects and things that relate back to your business and your expertise and what you do and talk about them in different ways, repurpose them into formats. If you have a carousel, that could be turned into a script for a talking to camera video. If you have a talking to camera video, is there a trend that you can now take that idea and apply to that trend? I think there's also a lot of inspiration you can pull from the outside world. Like whenever I work with a one-on-one client, it's like after that call, I'm like, holy cow, I have like 10 different content ideas that I can pull from that one call and the different issues they're facing and what we're working through. I also find sometimes just reading a book that has nothing to do with social media. Right now I'm reading Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I hope that's the right title. And there's so many just little nuggets where I'm like, wow, that's really powerful. But oh my gosh, I can take that concept and make it make sense in my world. So I think it's a little bit of a mixture of like the internal and the internal being that soup of like evergreen content ideas that can be reformatted and be repurposed in different types of videos, static posts, stories, threads, etc. But then also tapping into what are some external sources that really generate these creative ideas for me that perhaps aren't in that internal soup, or allow me to look at a client pain point or an industry issue in a slightly different light.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Honestly, again, relatability to not everybody who looks like they got their ish together on social media. Like, cool, you're a real human, Jera. Yay. I think as you hit your 10-year mark now, as you're coming on this, it's normal to want to see what's the next evolution going to be. And I found that to be true with myself in the beauty industry. I hit probably the 10-year mark, and that's when I got that first itch of like, is this it? What's the next level? And then we spent another 7-8 years like taking it to the next level by opening my own space, and then finally sitting with, is this it too? And then how do I scale myself? How do I grow? How do I evolve? How do I take skill sets that I have and use them in other areas? I wish I would have had a similar framework to even what you just gave us in the beginning of the 1, 2, 3, the expertise, the secret sauce, and just the business part. Because if someone had maybe walked me through those, I maybe could have seen the value that I had built from 20 years in an industry where a lot of people struggle to see the things that come really natural and easy to them because it's just normal. And unless you're in a different environment, nobody can really see those gifts. And so I think that's the power of working with coaches or working with someone's framework to help pull some of that juice out of you so you realize, oh shit, I do have some cool secret sauce shit in here. And I just took it for granted because it's just what I naturally do. Okay, you're reading Joe Dispenza now. I definitely got a little insight to where your head's at. Those of you who don't know, that is a difficult book to get through too. I've had to pick it up and put it down several times because he is so smart.
Yes, I have my highlighter and I'll read one chapter and then I'll go back and read it and then I'll highlight. Every time I read something, I'm like, oh my God, I'm forgetting what I just learned. It's overwhelming, but in a really cool way.
Yeah. And I use a lot of things that I read as prompts for how I bring it into my business to coach people because, again, I only have the expertise I have. And if I can share someone else's insight as to how they got to the next level piece of discovery of yourself, it can give you those ahas. So same for me when I hit those creative dry spells, because people are like, how have you kept the podcast going for so long? Don't you ever run out of stuff to talk about? And I'm like, that's why I carve out an hour almost every morning to either just free write or to read a book. If I'm feeling literally stuck, like nothing wants to go onto the paper, I'm like, you need to read something. And so there's at any given time, like 5 or 6 books under my coffee table. I pick up one that's speaking to me, read a few pages, read a couple chapters, whatever it is that I need. And it generally triggers a thought, a feeling, or some sort of takeaway that I want to then expand on. So I go create a podcast episode out of it or I create content for it. I certainly don't do it enough. I think I'd have a bazillion more episodes if I could do even more. And we could all be doing more. That's the thing that always poo-poos on everything is we're like, God, it feels like there's never enough that we could be doing. And I know if you're an early stage entrepreneur, if you're someone who's new to creating on social media, set up some guidelines for yourself around what consistency looks like for you. You made the joke earlier of like 5 posts a week and 5 times a day. Is there any sort of formula that we should follow?
Here's the thing that's challenging. I think going back to what I was saying around like 5 posts, trending audio, is that there is so much information like that makes it seem like there is a right way and a wrong way. And so then you get in your head thinking, I have to do it this way, but I don't even know what this way is. It's confusing, but this must be the right way. And then I'm doing it wrong. But so much of social media is gray area. Anytime I make a statement, I'm sure there's someone else who thinks or does it slightly differently, and they might be right and they might find success in that way. So something that I bring up all the time when it comes to content is showing up is that we can see, oh my gosh, this person has really professional, high quality videos and they do transitions and the lighting and I don't even know how to edit, for example. For every single person doing it one way, I can probably within an hour, if it's not even off the top of my head, find you someone else who's doing it the complete opposite way and finding success. So one person might be like, all they do is super fancy transitions, and someone else might talk to the camera with 0 edits for 60 seconds, and they are finding success in that way. So that kind of goes back to this point of there isn't a right and wrong way to do it. However, that can also be confusing too, because we also need like at least a little bit of guidance. So 2 things to think about, at least off the top of my head, are setting what I call a safe and a stretch goal each week. I think it's really challenging when it's like, I have to post 4 times a week. And then you don't post 4 times a week. And then you feel really badly about yourself. And then those feelings generate. And then it just makes you not even want to try next week. So we have to be realistic with where we are at right now. If someone's like, I haven't posted in 6 months, okay, let's not jump to 4 times a week. Let's set a safe goal of posting once and maybe a stretch goal of posting 3 times. And then if you get to 2 or 3 times, maybe then our safe is 2 and then our stretch is 4, just as an example. So that safe and stretch goal, I think, is helpful just for our own benefit to not really knock ourselves down if we don't hit that one singular number. I also think there's difference between growth mode and maintenance mode. You don't have to try to be growing all the time. Maybe you have a million other things going on and you feel like a good connection to your community right now. You don't have to be going balls to the wall trying to grow. So maybe you're entering into a maintenance mode. And I think a maintenance mode versus a growth mode is going to have a different safe and stretch goal. Obviously, if you're trying to grow, we all have to be realistic. That's going to require more posting. Do I think anyone should be posting multiple times a day? Absolutely not. Do I think someone should be posting 7 days a week? That's really hard. So I don't want someone to burn out, but I do think if we're in a growth mode, we got to be talking at least 5 days a week. And if you can get it up to 7 and it's quality, cool. But a maintenance mode could be you're posting 2-ish times a week. So it's different seasons that you're in as well as it relates to your life or your business.
I love that. And then are there any sort of like insights with the hashtag things that are going on now? I know stories are meant to just really build into the community you already have and nurture them. Obviously, the posts and the new stuff is to acquire potential spots on the explore page or to find new people for your community. But what about the little insider tips? Are there anything that we're missing that people are like, don't even worry about that anymore, or that we should be concerned with?
I'm glad you asked about hashtags. I freaking despise hashtags. I want to throw them in the freaking garbage. I do have a really strong opinion about them, and I know other people don't. So that's my other grain of salt that I'll throw in there. But let me at least explain why. And I think your question is great. Hashtags are very tangible. We can talk about what they are and then where to put them in your post. But because they're so tangible, people focus so heavily on them. And there's other lower hanging fruit that people also focus so heavily on. But it makes sense because they are more tangible than talking about high level strategy. That's the more challenging thing. But anyway, so go back to hashtags. They had a time and a place. I would say 2015 to 2019, they were a form of discovery. If you put a hashtag on a post, it will then appear in the feed of that hashtag. And if you ranked high, that was how people could potentially discover you. Fast forward to 2024, there are so many forms of discovery. If we focus on Instagram alone, we have the Reels feed. As you scroll through your Reels feed, you are most likely shown 99% of content of people that you do not follow yet. So that is a form of discovery. There's other forms of discovery as well. I think this is one of the most interesting developments. If you scroll through your main feed of people that you have chosen to follow, every second, third, at most fourth post is going to say suggested for you. Based on your viewing history and your interaction, Instagram is going, hey, I think you'll like this post. And it's someone that you do not follow yet. And then we also have the explore page, which has been around for a while now, but that is another form of discovery. So if we consider those 3 forms of discovery compared to hashtags, they have completely dropped in their significance, and people aren't necessarily tapping on hashtags to discover new content anymore. So are they going to hurt you? Absolutely not. Could they potentially help? Maybe the tiniest bit. I think their larger significance is more as a keyword than it is as a hashtag. But here's the thing. I do not want anyone listening to be stressing about it or to be putting time into hashtags. I so much rather you take 30 minutes that you were potentially going to research a hashtag and instead make a video or brainstorm more secret sauce ideas or consider a new way to share your expertise via thought leadership. To me, that is so much more impactful than spending time figuring out which hashtags to use. If you were to show up consistently via Reels, because those are going to be the biggest bang for your buck in terms of discovery, if you were to never put one single hashtag in the captions of those Reels, I'd be like, cool, awesome. you'll be fine. That's how insignificant they are to me. I will say there are other people who probably disagree, but that's how I feel about them. And they definitely, no matter what, are a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Bang. Boom. Okay, guys, stop obsessing over hashtags. Yeah. Focus more on your secret sauce. I always love to give people this test. If they struggle to find their secret sauce, if they struggle to find their zone of genius, is that trick of asking 5 of your closest friends how they would describe you? How do you like to help people dive into that juice?
I have different prompts that I use. So I think it's a good place to start. Like with foundational secret sauce, it's like, all right, what are the pivots that you've made in your life? What are like 5 things that you're proud of? Who has made a difference in your life? What's a time where you had to overcome something? They're pretty simple, and everything that you come up with in that is not necessarily stuff you have to share, because remember, you have ownership over what it is that you share. But I invite people to go through prompts like that, and you might find something that you wouldn't have expected to find otherwise. I think with personal secret sauce, it's like, all right, what are 5 words you would use to describe you? What do you do on your weekends? What are things that really fill your cup? What are you struggling with right now? Sometimes I call it personal, sometimes I call it present. Personal, present secret sauce. It's also, with that specifically, keeping your radar up in the moment. And that goes for lighthearted and professional as well, because I do think sometimes when you sit down and go, okay, I'm going to figure out different things that I can say or talk about to show up authentically. I think that kind of works for foundational, because that's all kind of set in stone and it's the past, but it's a little bit more challenging to like capture authenticity in the moment. So it's more of, can you start to be aware of things? A client of mine the other day, we were talking about this thought that came into her head about men commuting to work in New York City. And she like sees men commuting to work and they don't have a bag or anything. And it's like, where are you putting your thing? Is it just in your pocket? I guess as a woman, you can't understand. How do you not have a bag? Now, this is to me an example of a micro thought that's perfect to share on stories. This is a thought that came from you. So it's part of your secret sauce and authenticity and how you think and see the world. So that is not something that if you were just sitting down and brainstorming, like, let me think of things that I think about. I think about men commuting to work and how they don't carry any bags. That's not going to happen. So a large part of it is also just keeping that radar up. And if you want to jot things down as they come into your head, that awareness factor, I think, is a really big part as you start to hone in on what you could be sharing around secret sauce.
So helpful. I love that. Yeah. Keep a little notepad or just do a little voice notes in your notes section. And that's one of the things is I've tried to keep more notes in that. And then I move everything to an Asana board just under brain dump of all this random shit that I think, so that I can pull from that when I'm creating content, where I'm trying to think of themes to record episodes on podcasts so things make more sense. But there's a reason why the show is called Unscripted, because I like to do things unscripted. You know what I'm saying? This has been so jam-packed, and I'm sure I could probably pick your brain for another 3 hours straight. Y'all, if you love Jera, please go give her some takeaways that you got from this episode. Share this with someone else who's trying to grow their business online with social media. And let's all make social media more fun, shall we? I think we want to see things that are more lighthearted and fun. So if you're thinking about the fact that guy doesn't have a bag and he's walking to work and what the hell, you should share that and talk about it. If you love cheese and crackers, bitch, tell us how much you love cheese and crackers, okay? Y'all know how much I love going to the gym. I show you guys that every morning on social media as part of my foundational get my mind right. And I know you're in a season right now, like you shared with us, which was so awesome to know. But what is coming up in that work that you're doing? What is next for Jera? What is next for someone who's had so much success with what they've done? Where is your head at with things? Because I'm curious. You could literally think, I don't fucking know, Jess.
No. I have somewhat of an answer. So the most tangible thing, which I'm very excited about, but it also makes me want to tear my hair out. I've been working on my first ever self-paced evergreen course. And I want to tear my hair out because I've been working on it for a year. Remind me to never spend a year making anything again because it's just too long. However, it really did need all the time because it's about video editing for short form video content for Reels and TikToks. I find that everyone pretty much needs to make video content for social media, but showing up authentically on social media is not an inherent thing. Same thing, video editing is not this inherent skill we are all born with, but we are all magically expected to have. Now, I've been editing since I was a wee child because my mom is in that world. She's a video producer, director, editor, writer, etc. I've been doing it forever. So for me, it's like, oh yeah, I got this, but I see the struggle with people and it's so real and so justified because it's hard. It's technical. And a lot of video editing courses out there are mostly like, here's how to make this fancy transition. Great. I love transitions, but nothing out there is teaching like how to make an effective talking to camera video, how to create a vlog. What are the tips and tricks? What about layering your voiceover? What about overlaying different things so you can actually cut to them while you're talking about something else? So my course, even though transitions is a small part of it, has the nuts and bolts of what we all need. So anyways, long-winded answer of I'm launching that soon. But the other really exciting part of it is I'm licensing it to companies. So I actually have licensed it already to MAC Cosmetics. I'm working on another deal with an agency here in Austin, a marketing agency. So I'm really excited by the opportunity of that because it's a whole other revenue stream that I haven't been able to explore before because I haven't had a self-paced course. So that's the big tangible thing coming down the pipeline. I can do anything when it comes to social media. I can work with a brand. I can work with an individual. I can work on different goals and different types of formats. But it's like, what do I actually really want to hone in on? And I think where I get the most excited is working with definitely someone who's the face of their brand, a founder, a service-based business, a personal brand, a content creator even, and someone who's really wanting to bring their voice and their unique perspective and their secret sauce to their content. So that's not everyone. Some people are like, nope, I just want the information and I want to be super transactional and whatever it may be, which is totally fine. There's a time and place for that. But I'm really wanting to hone in on people's voices and the impact and message and what they want to be known for and really creating that personal brand. So I think that's the direction I'm heading in. Obviously, there's a lot to figure out within that, but that's the overarching theme as I'm dissecting who it is that I want to be in this professional space as I evolve into something in this next year and beyond.
So cool. Oh, I can't wait for the course. I will definitely be first on deck to grab that. I think even if you do have decent editing skills, getting even more in the weeds of like how to create with ease, I'll be more likely to create the video if I know how to edit it and upload it and do all the little cool things that I want to it. I think that's the block. A lot of people too think they're not good at content, but they're like, no, I just don't know how to edit it so it'll look like all these other videos do on social media. Having used a podcast production agency, they clip the reels and do a lot of stuff for me. The very first company I did use, I struggled because a lot of times I didn't like what they were pulling. I didn't like how they did things and I just had to use it because it was all I had. And now with the different tools, like we're recording right now on a platform called Riverside, we're doing talking videos right now. And so that's why I drive a lot of people to create podcasts so they can start to find their voice through talking and sharing and asking questions and getting curious. And I feel like I found my second wind of voice because I started the podcast. And there's a lot of ways you guys can get from A to Z, but learning how to do these videos gets that one excuse out of the way to creating the video. You can have fun with things just as much as if you know how to do them, right? Podcasting seems scary until you sit down and do one and realize it's not that hard. That's why the course that we had has helped so many people. They're like, oh my God, I got in my way. I thought this had to be perfect. And I'm like, no, there's an up-leveled way to do things. And then there's a get shit done way to do stuff too. And so if you can just start with the get shit done, you can work your way up to like the advanced this or that. Everyone's like, you're lighting them. Well, it's a fucking ring light on Amazon, guys. But you have helped us just like break things down. So hopefully people are like, fucking, I can get out of my own way. I'm going to work through these things that she shared today. I have so many takeaways. You guys, again, go follow Jera.bean on Instagram. I know she's going to have this course out to us in no time. But in the meantime, is there a way people can work with you now? I know you have a variety of different things. So share with us what the things are.
So great question. The answer is no. So silly, right? You'd think there'd be all these things. But that goes back to what I was saying before. It's a complete refiguring and a taking apart the puzzle to then put it back together and really rebuild my product suite in a way that makes sense for me now and in the future and in a more sustainable way. Full disclosure, I'm like totally recovering from burnout, which like we could record a whole other podcast on. But I'm on my way, which is really positive. So at the moment, I only take on a very small amount of one-on-one clients. So that is full currently. And I stopped running my group program, which was called the Social Media Saloon about 2 years ago. So once I get this new course out that's self-paced, the plan is to move on to the next area of the product suite. I can't wait to have another group program come about so I can work with. Out of all the things I love doing group programs, it really fills my cup. So definitely stay tuned, sign up for my email list, follow me so that once those things are available, y'all can work with me. I would love that. That'd be great.
Yes. And you guys can get on the wait list for that video editing rodeo that's coming soon. I'm going to put myself on the wait list right now. And she also has a slew of free resources, you guys. So go grab those, deep dive into that. consume all the free stuff that you can and then start to take action on some of this stuff. I bet you it's going to be a lot easier than you think. And sometimes we just need that little tweak to how we're thinking about things to make creating social media fun again. And can I invite you back so we can chat about burnout? Because I do think that's a huge topic. People want to know, how are you figuring things out? So we'll schedule that. You guys be on the lookout. If you love this episode, you already know what to do. Your girls love a little dose of validation because, we're human and we always want to know that you love what we create as creatives. Sending everyone so much love. Go create some content today that feels authentic. Tag us in it so we can reshare it for you and just give you a little shout out and celebrate you. If you're listening to this on a Friday, you know that you can celebrate Fuck Yeah Friday by tagging me or texting the word Friday to 619-332-3045, and you'll be in the know with all the upcoming events that we have. And I'll be sure to let you know if I know before you guys that this is coming out when she gets this course ready for us, because I know we all want to learn how to be better video editors. Jera, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you for having me on. This was awesome.
We'll see you guys on the next episode of Unscripted.